Lovely.
So those are all strips. So this is the dry aged like ribeye. So I met John George.
What does it do again?
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
My name's Chris. I'm a professional chef, I guess.
And where do you work?
Right now I work at a place called 41 North in Rhode Island.
Okay. What does it specialize in?
It's like a sort of modern, contemporary, sort of cosmopolitan experience in like Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
So we are on the water. We feature a lot of fresh fish, fresh shellfish, and then we also do a lot of high-end steaks.
Okay. And what got you into doing this? Like, what was your road to becoming a chef?
Well, when I was 18, I made a choice. I could either have tried doing art. I took a lot of art classes, and I thought maybe I could do some like graphic design or comic booky thing. I also played guitar for a long time, and I thought maybe I could try and pursue one of the bands I was in at the time and really try to push that forward. Or I also had a knack for cooking, and I figured maybe I could try my hand at cooking, and so I figured cooking was the best and easiest way for me to make money.
Okay.
I was wrong.
Okay. Why were you wrong? Well,
I just didn't realize how hard it would be.
Okay.
When I was that young, I thought it'd be way easier.
So, how do you start out? Like, what is the general way in which people that end up being chefs, what's your first step in case anyone's interested in pursuing this? I'm sure there's many ways to enter the field.
Yeah.
But what was your journey?
What I did was I started working at a coffee shop. And I started doing breakfast because a lot of chefs are like, it's very important to be able to cook eggs. So I figured the first thing I'd do was learn how to cook eggs. And so once I learned how to cook eggs, I moved on to working out in East Falls at a place called, what was it, Fork and Barrel? Fork and Barrel. Started doing like kind of like gastropubby bar things. Yeah, that's around the time when Philly had its big gastropub boom. So, and then after that, yeah, I just tried to get more nighttime fine dining experience. Worked in Reading Terminal Market for a little bit. Worked in the Navy Yard at Urban Outfitters. Just sort of, and then I started working for Terrence Fury, the old chef of Fork, at his restaurant, Tavra 13 in Jersey.
Oh, they might know that one. So where is that in Jersey?
Sweetsboro.
Okay.
Right on Kings Highway.
Okay.
Now it's called the Red Hen.
Okay.
Right next to Bottoms. But so when that first opened, it was a real high-end fine dining restaurant. And then after that, I worked at Nectar. That would be Chef Terrence's brother Patrick's restaurant over in Devon. And then after that, I moved up to Rhode Island. I've been working back for Terrence again.
Okay. So tell me, because I don't know much of the difference between a chef and a sous chef. And when do you go from being a sous chef to being a chef?
Well, so the chef guy, he sets the standard for the restaurant, right, and sets the tone and, his statement or vision, right? And the sous chef's job is to execute his vision.
Okay.
So, in my specific case, I am technically the executive sous chef. So, I manage the other sous chefs. I manage the kitchen, but I also manage the money. So, I manage our budget, our labor cost, our food cost, and I make sure we hit the numbers we need to hit based on the sales we're projected to do, or adjust depending if we're going to do less sales or if we're going to do more sales, just sort of that balance. So I manage that, and mostly just manage my sous chefs to manage my cooks.
So it seems like there's economics involved in this as well.
Yes.
Okay. Is it hard economics to figure out, or is it like...
Well, seeing as I didn't go past high school, it can't be that hard.
Okay. So tell me a bit about the kind of cultures that you like, particularly cooking? What sort of cuisine is your favorite? Is it the one that you're from? I know that you're Italian American. And
it's Chinese.
Chinese is your favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's nice. It's fitting that we're at a Chinese restaurant right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like Szechuan cooking. I like the heat. I like a lot of the flavors in Chinese cooking. A lot of
Szechuan
contrast.
pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of other cuisines really are based around sort of the synergy of flavors. But no, I really like high contrast, big bold big bold flavors. And that's sort of all Asian food.
Sure.
A lot of that is just, contrasty.
But are there other cuisines that are like that, where there's contrasts like it?
Well, I mean, you got all South America, has things like that. The spice and the heat and the acid, all sort of contrasting things. You got, besides, Vietnam, Korea, like all those sort of Southeastern Asian countries, it's all falls in the same category of contrast. And then a lot of the European in general, East and West, it's like foods that just sort of flow together. A lot of, not necessarily cream, but cream and butter and thyme and things that go good with that. Not a lot of, heavier foods because of where it's at. It's colder, so you have more cheeses, more things that take time to develop, charcuterie, all those things that you make in cold weather that you couldn't make in some of the hotter places.
Right. So really, temperature matters as well.
Yeah, it's a big part of the style of cuisine because you couldn't make charcuterie in the jungles of Vietnam because it would just rot.
Right.
So they have to do other things to preserve food traditionally.
Well, that's an interesting point because I also, some of these students have taken a class with me on environmental psychology.
Okay.
And the idea here is that environments shape the way in which we think, but environments also significantly shape our food ways. And this is one of the reasons why it's so nice to travel, where you're actually able to, try it's like you're eating the climate of the culture that you're visiting as well.
Yeah.
So
a lot of it is based around that, and fuel is another push for the styles of food. So in Europe, they had an abundance of fuel, just in various sort of things. So that's why you have French food, lots of braises, lots of roasts, things that take a long time to cook. And then in China and the Asias in general, fuel wasn't as abundant as it was in the West. So you have things that take just a couple of seconds to cook. You have to fire up the wok, right? And you're done in a minute. Whereas you have the other side, and it's just not like that.
Right. So in Europe, you could smoke things, for instance, whereas you don't see many smoked foods in Vietnamese cuisine.
No.
That's very interesting. I never really, made that point. That's really good. So we're going to get some coffee, and then we'll continue the conversation over there. Just one last thing before we get the coffee about the kitchen culture that you were just about to say.
So a lot of people think kitchens are this sort of aggressive thing. Gordon Ramsay really sort of project that whole persona, and that was very true up until pretty recently. It's not as intense as it used to be. People aren't willing to they're not willing to do the same kind of almost slave labor that we do in kitchens. When I started cooking as a line cook at a really high-end restaurant, and I only made $7, a little more than $7 an hour, and I worked 50, 60 hour weeks, and honestly I didn't even get paid for overtime half the time. I just kind of did it because it's how you learn in fine dining. It's part of the culture, and that doesn't exist anymore. Even with young cooks coming in, they just see all these television shows, and they think that is with the culinary school that they know how to cook and they know how to create, and it's just not true. I mean, I've spent, at this point, I'm 10 years cultivating skill and trying to really learn what it means to be a chef, you know, working in really intense environments. And then I have all these young kids who come in from Johnston, Wales, is the big school up in Rhode Island, and they just think because they have the degree they can walk on my hotline and, you know, cook the fish or something along those lines. And it's just a different mindset from when I started to like where I am now. It hasn't been that long, the period of time.
Right. So there's been sort of a cultural shift, and that idea of the chef that's yelling and screaming.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it goes away.
It goes away, right?
Which, as someone who came up in an environment like that, sort of that old school mentality, it's hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with the young cooks.
Yeah.
And they're sort of like, well, I don't want to work more than 40 hours, or, you know, I want my 2 days off, and we don't always get 2 days off. We don't always get to work. I mean, when I'm in my season, I work 70-hour weeks.
Right.
Easily. I maybe have a day off, but yeah, it's like it's hard. It's hard, and it's a demanding industry, and it's just these kids don't want to put in the same amount of effort.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that even in my field, you know, you sort of feel that way with some of the graduate students, for instance, where, you know, you know, they, you know, it's like I almost like to say to them sometimes, I wish that you experienced what I experienced in graduate school, because you really wouldn't have survived, because you know, you had to have a lot thicker skin than what today is allotted or allowed. So that might be something that we, you know, maybe share a little bit in common. Okay, let's go get some coffee.
I already put the water.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're good, man.
See what happens.
Damn.
This is like alchemy. It's crazy.
Where does Lance work? Oh.
Really? No, really?
Huh. That's interesting.
Is it different than your regular coffee?
Yeah. It's I don't know, it's cleaner. It's like not a lot of acid. It's hot.
Yeah, it's going to be very hot. It might need to cool down first before you, especially if you're drinking it black.
Yeah, but it's like not very bitter. Not a lot of acid. Kind of just tastes like really straightforward coffee flavor without any of the acidity or bitter flavor.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's good.
Cool.